So today we're going to talk about fascia matches. What a fascia match is if you have roofs with two different characteristics, whether it's two different slopes or whatever it is, you need the fascias to match up. Think about it. If you're looking at a house, let's say this is the corner of the house where the roof lines meet. You have that fascia that's out at the end of the trusses. You guys have done it. I've seen you working on it in the shop. Well, if the slopes are different, that fascia will often be at a different height. So let's say here's the top of our wall. And of course, the top of the wall is at the same height no matter where you are in the house, hopefully. Oh, you have different wall levels on that one? Yeah, most of them are. So then, let's say we have a truss here that has a 8-12 slope. So it slopes down a little bit. Have a truss here that has a 6-12 slope. Well, if the overhang distance here is the same, let me draw this one a little bit here. So if our overhang distance here is the same on both of them, obviously the 8-12 slope is going to drop a lot more in that overhang than the 6-12 slope will. So what we need to do is we need to figure out how to adjust it so that the fascia height right here is at the same height. Or the top of that, the end of the tail of the truss is at the same height. The way we do that is we raise this heel height here to lift this up so that it matches. So we need to figure out what that adjusted heel height needs to be. So if this is done correctly, there are two places that will always match up. The top of the wall will always match up with the top of the wall. And we want the tail of the trusses to match up. So we need to figure out what this height has to be. So again, we said we have an 8-12 slope here. I didn't label it, but there's a 6-12 slope on this side. We need to know what the overhang is. Let's say it's a 24-inch or 2-foot overhang on both trusses. And this heel height right here. Do you guys know what a heel is on a truss? The heel is just the height from the top of the wall straight up on the outside edge of the wall to the top of the truss. And let's say this is standard for a 6-12 truss. It's going to 6 3/16 inches heel. What does this heel height over here have to be to make the fascias match? So we're going to start on the one truss that we know everything about. There are 3 things that we need to know about the truss to do a fascia match. One is the slope, one is the heel height, and one is the overhang. So we start with the truss that we know all 3 things, and we're going to start at the top of its wall. Because we know that's a constant height, that both trusses have that same 0 point. Now we need to figure out how high the tail is, the end of the truss is, compared to that. So from this point, we're going to go up the heel here. So if we label this as 0 here at the top of the wall, how high are we right here at the top of the heel? 6 3/16 inches. Perfect. Now we need to figure out how far we're dropping going down the truss here out to the tail. So this is 24 inches here. This is going to be a height here. How do I figure out how high that is? Perfect. 6/12 equals h over 24. So h is going to be how much? 12. Very good. H is 12. So this drops 12 inches here. Well, I was at 6 3/16. I dropped 12 inches, puts me at a negative 5 13/16 is where I'm at. Make sense? So this point right here is at a negative 5 13/16 inches. Which means if these are going to match up, this needs to be at that height. Make sense? So from there, we'll figure out what height. That means we're just that far below the top of the wall. That's all that means. 5 13/16 below the top of the wall. So now we need to figure out how high we're going to rise going up the slope here with a 24-inch overhang. We'll call this h over here. So now it's 8/12 equals h over 24. H, if we cross multiply and divide, ends up being 16 inches. So we're now going to take that 15 and 13 16, or negative 5, sorry, and 13 sixteenths, and we're going to add 16 inches to it, which puts us at a positive 10 and 3 sixteenths. Does that make sense? So what that means is this height right here has to be a positive 10 and 3 sixteenths inches. So from that we can figure out what our heel height has to be. What does our heel height have to be? 10 and 3 sixteenths. Make sense? Cool. What's that? So I'm going to have you guys try one, just like that. Yep. The negative 5 and 13 sixteenths we had, plus 16. The 13 sixteenths. Yep. Thanks. I had, this was my height. I was at negative 5 and 13 sixteenths right here. And I went up 16 inches. So I added 16 to the negative 5 and 13 sixteenths. So I'm from being 5 inches below to being 10 inches above. What that's saying.
That's the difference?
Yep. So down here, we're going to stick the 24-inch overhangs. And we're going to give you that the heel height on this one is 7 1/8 inches. I want to find, to match the fascias, the heel height over here. This is a 10-12 slope and this is a 12-12 slope. I'll pause it so you guys can work on it. Okay, so we start out here at 0. We go up to 7 1/8. Going down the overhang, 10-12 slope, 24-inch overhangs. This is 20 inches of drop. Which puts us down here, if we do 7/8 minus 20, it's going to put us at a negative 12 7/8. So 7 1/8 minus 20. So that means we're at negative 12 7/8 over here. We're going up 24 inches on a 12-12 slope. Means we go up 24 inches. So 12 7/8 plus 24 is 11 1/8 inch. Everybody get that to work? Yes? Cool. Now another way we can look at them, rather than changing the heel height, we can change the overhang. Let's say we don't want to spend the extra money to buy a special order truss with a raised heel like that. It'll cost you an extra little bit, 10, 15 bucks per truss to have that done. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to buy stock trusses and just adjust the overhangs. Which roof has to have the smaller overhang? Low slope roof or the high slope roof? High slope roof has to have the smaller overhang because it's going to drop faster, so it can't go out quite as far. So let's say that we're going to have the low slope roof is going to have a 24-inch overhang. This is going to be a 6/12 slope, and it's going to have a standard 6 3/16 heel. Over here, we have, what I'm doing there, a 10-12 slope. And it is going to have 6 7/8 heel. We need to find what's its overhang here going to be in order for the fascias to match height. So we're going to start over here on the one that we have all three pieces of information again. This is our 0 point right here. We go up to 6 3/16 up here. Pretty easy so far. We do our slope here, 6/12 slope on 24 inches. 6 over 12 equals blank over 24 is going to give us how many inches? 12 inches of drop. which puts us down here at a negative 5 and 13/16 inches, which puts us right there at a negative 5 and 13/16 inches. So now we have to take a little bit different approach. We don't know the overhang, so we can't find what the rise is here. But we do know the heel height, and we know the location that we want the end of the tail at, so we can actually find the total rise from that. We have 6 and 7/8, and we have 5 and 13/16. We combine those to get a total rise here of how much? 12 and 11/16 inches. So now that we know that total rise, we can use our 10/12 slope to figure out what the overhang has to be. So 10 over 12 has to equal the 12 and 11/16 over whatever that overhang is. So we'll do 12 times 12 and 11/16 divided by 10. So here's my 12 and 11/16 times 12 divided by 10. 15.225. Now remember, I said everything's going to go to the 16th, so we're going to subtract 15 to get rid of the 15 inches. Multiply by 16 to turn 0.225 into 16ths. That's 3.6 or 4/16. So this is 15 and 1/4 inch. Any questions? Yeah, we have 5 and 13/16 down here. And we have 6 and 7/8 here, so this total rise is going to be taken by adding those two numbers together. You guys want to try one of those on your own? You're still confused? Sure, I'll give you a second. Okay, so let's do this one. This one's going to be a 12/12 slope. This will be an 8/12 slope. On our 8/12, we're going to have a heel height of 6 and 7/16. We'll have a 24-inch overhang. Over here, we're going to look for the overhang, and we have a heel height of 7 and 3/16. Find what that overhang has to be. Okay, so we'll start on the one we know everything on. This one on the left here. This is 6 and 7/16 inches here. 8/12 slope means we're going to drop 16 inches here, which will put us down at a negative 9 and 9/16 inches. Everybody come up with that part? Okay. So we're going negative 9 and 9/16 there. 7 and 3/16 there, which puts us at a total of 16 and 3/4 inches from here all the way up. So now, of course, this is a 12/12 slope, so it makes it kind of easy. 12 over 12 equals 16 and 3/4 over whatever that overhang is. So the overhang is 16 and 3/4 inches. Questions? Okay. The other thing we could do, you okay over there? The other thing we could do is we could adjust the slope. So where this comes into play is, let's say you need a certain heel height on one truss. So over here we're going to go with a 6/12 slope. We have a 6 and 3/16 heel height here again. 24-inch overhang. And we know we want a 24-inch overhang here, but we also know that we want to have a 6 and 13/16 heel height here for some reason. So now we need to figure out what slope we're going to put in here. So I'm going to put a P here for the missing slope. Still need to find this height. So we got 6 3/16. Dropping down the 6/12 slope here over 24 inches makes this 12 inches of drop. This number should be familiar by now. We're at negative 5 13/16. So what that means is from here up, we have 5 13/16 with the 6 13/16. Gives us 12 5/8, correct? So we have to have 12 5/8 inches of rise here. So what that means we have 12 5/8 over 24 equals blank over 12. So you 12 times 12 5/8. So 12 5/8 times 12 divided by 24 gives a 6.31. So we have 6.31 slope. Make sense? Yeah, that was because it was negative 5 13 here, and it was 6 13 here, so that's the total height. So all you have is the rise, and you have your overhang run. That gives you the slope. In the packet, there are those 3 problems towards the back on fascia matches. You can do those 3 problems, and also, let me find it here. You can also then on the very back, so you have 80, 81, and 82 on fascia matches. Those pictures are kind of poorly drawn because the tail should go down below the wall height, but you guys get the picture. And then 87 through 92, if you haven't done them yet, need to be done. And that'll finish this packet, which will bring us to a quiz tomorrow. Everybody say, yay. Can you go back up? Sure.